Asebo Kwaman Kese, Felix Kwakye Ofosu. Honorable Kwakye Ofosu, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Winston.
Great, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, Winston.
Great. So, great. So, once the statement was released yesterday, questions from many quarters: why a presidential group, advisory group on the economy? Where's the economic management team? There's a presidential advisor on the economy. The finance minister is not even part of this advisory group. What are your responses to these concerns, Felix?
Well, of course, legitimate questions which require clarifications. The first point is that there is no economic management team as yet.
Okay.
So it does not arise at all. There is no economic management team. The second point is that the idea of an advisory council on the economy is not new. In fact, the first to take such a step was President Mills sometime in 2010 or so, when he set up the the Economic Advisory Council, at the time chaired by the late Mr. Nankani, Dr. Nankani, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
At that time, he also had an economic management team chaired by then Vice President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Then, when President Kufuor took over, he didn't have an economic advisory council, but he had an economic management team, which had become a convention started by President Rawlings. President Mahama initially had an economic management team when he became president in 2013. Then in 2015, when we had some economic headwinds, he established the Presidential Advisory Group on the economy. So I have traced this history to show that it is nothing new. Now the purpose of this is to tap into the expertise and experience and depth of knowledge of people with extensive background in economic management and private business. So if you check the list, you see that there are known political figures there, like Dr. Kwabena Dufo, who is also a former governor of the Bank of Ghana, the former finance minister, and a successful one at that. There's also Mr. Setepe, who used to be finance minister, so he has a lot of experience in economic management. But there are also people from academia, professors who teach in our universities, who are economic researchers. There are also established business names, like Mr. Sam Jonah, Togbe Afede, and Mr. Ismail Yamson, who for many years was the managing director of one of Ghana's biggest companies, Unilever Ghana Limited. And then there's the vice president, and then the advisory group is chaired by the president himself. Indeed, the president chaired the 2015 advisory group also.
Okay.
And the purpose for this advisory group was clearly stated in the statement that I released yesterday. Among other things, they are supposed to coordinate the formulation and implementation of economic policy and advise on measures, strategies, and policies that can strengthen our economy, given the trajectory of our economy and the history that we have had.
Okay.
Now, the finance minister is not part of it. It is provides some insulation and independence for the advisory group, so that their decisions or their advice are formulated from a standpoint of independence without influence from those who are involved in the active day-to-day management of the economy. It is the reason why the governor of the Bank of Ghana is also not there, because he is in charge of monetary policy and its implementation. Okay. So that, in a nutshell, is the rationale behind this.
Yeah, but talking about the membership, I see Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, Vice President, Ishmael Yamson, Kwame Pienim, Miss Nana Oyeman Sanyeboa, Kwabena Dufo, Samuel Eson Jonah, Ato Brown, Henry Kofi Wampa, Togbe Afede the 14th, Abnamwa, Professor Preslechu Messi Bafo, and Professor Patience Abo. But I do not see Seth Tekbe, who is the presidential advisor on the economy. Why is he not here?
Well, I pardon my initial error. The point is that Mr. Setepe is a presidential advisor on the economy. So he also has a role to play in economic policy formulation and management. As I indicated, the object is to ensure that the group itself is insulated from the day-to-day management of the economy, so that their policy formulation advice is done from a standpoint of independence. That essentially is the rationale why those who are actively engaged in day-to-day management of the economy are not on the, what do you call it, the group. Yes.
Okay, but if you look at the purpose and mandate, A, provide strategic counsel on macroeconomic management, fiscal consolidation, debt sustainability, and coherence between fiscal and monetary policy. Issues of debt sustainability, fiscal consolidation, you'd expect that these are things that would be implemented by the finance minister. So if you say you want to ensure independence, isn't it important for the finance minister to be part of the group that would advise the president on these issues?
No, the finance minister is at the forefront of the day-to-day management of the economy, together with the governor, the government statistician, and other key players in economic management. If you put him on this group, it tends to compromise the level of independence that is required to assess the performance of the economy, how those who do the day-to-day management are performing, and what informs their decisions. So it is to allow for some insulation in policy formulation and the formulation of advice on how the economy should be managed. That essentially is the reason why those who are actively involved in day-to-day management are not on this committee, on this group. I beg your pardon.
Great. And so when the president is advised by this group, the expectation is that whoever has to implement that advice will be directed by the president to do that, right?
Well, of course, all of us ministers, appointees of any sort, work at the pleasure of the president. The buck stops with him. And indeed, this president has been very, very active in the way that governance has transpired. Many of the things that have been done by the finance minister have been done with the tacit approval and concurrence of the president. It is not possible to take major decisions on the economy without the say-so of the president. So once the president is convinced that the advice that has been brought and deliberated upon would inure to the benefit of the economy, he will issue the appropriate instructions, and people who work under him are obliged to carry out the instructions unless they can show that a problem may arise if such instructions are carried out. And they will then have to convince the president as to why that directive should not be carried out. So I think that it is fairly straightforward and not complicated at all. Yeah.
Now, you say there is currently no economic management committee.
That is true. No economic management, yes.
Would there be one?
Well, I'm not able to say. It is at the discretion of the president because the economic management team is formed by the president. As I indicated earlier, in 2015, there was an economic management team. But the president also set up the presidential advisory group on the economy when we faced some headwinds between 2015 and 2016. So President Mills also had an economic management team, but he had a Dr. Nankani chaired presidential advisory group on the economy. A presidential advisory council on the economy. So it is not unusual to have an economic management team and also have a group of advisors. But as we speak, there is no economic management team. There is only the presidential advisory group on the economy. If at any point the president deems it necessary to augment the work of the managers of the economy by setting up an economic management team, I will communicate gladly to the people of Ghana.
Great. And let's look at the terms and conditions of this group. How often will they meet and how will they be remunerated? As
we speak, I'm not certain about any remuneration. It's an advisory group. They are not permanent employees. If you look at them, you see that many of these people are already engaged in other activities. There are people who are lecturing in the universities who are already on the public payroll and therefore are not going to get any additional remuneration, as far as I know. But in terms of the frequency of their meetings, that would depend on what they decide. If you like, frequency in terms of how many times they have to meet and conducted and the modalities governing such meetings. I think that the group will be allowed at their first meeting or any other meeting to make this determination. But what is certain is that they will keep a close eye on the economy and ensure that the policies that are being implemented are the right ones and they will benefit the generality of our people.
Okay. Beyond the university lecturers also, I see the likes of Ishmael Yamson, Kwame Pienim. These are private persons. I see Sir Sam Jonah, Mr. Atunu, who is a former World Bank infrastructure specialist and agribusiness investor. He's a private person engaged in his farming. So if you're getting these people to advise, if I went to them and I sought their advice, or if any entity went to them seeking advice, they would charge the person. Are you saying?
Well, but they are not being engaged in any consulting capacity. What you are talking about would emerge if they were being hired as consultants, but they are not consultants. All the people you've mentioned are distinguished personalities. Many of them have had long careers managing some of our biggest organizations. Mr. Kwame Pienim is a distinguished statesman with many years of public service, and he's been in private practice for many years, advising on the economies of countries beyond Ghana. Mr. Atunu, as he said, is a prominent businessman. He's worked with the World Bank and other international financial organizations. So these are not people who are in here to make a quick buck, but they are people who have been called upon to put their expertise at the disposal of the nation, because we require a certain firm hand in the way that our economy is managed, given our past experiences, and the need to move away from it and do things that are more beneficial to our economic development. So there's really no remuneration that I know of or can speak of at this moment.
Okay. Now, before you go, I know that the past few days has been difficult period for many passengers. During your last accountability series, you were talking about it, but the situation is still the same. What is government doing? What's the transport ministry doing in dealing with the commercial vehicle situation where a lot of people today close from work and can't get home because there are no vehicles?
Well, indeed, government is extremely concerned. The state of affairs. And as I indicated at the accountability series, normally our public transport system is dominated by private sector players. And it has served as well all these years. But we noted towards the festive season last year that there had been a sudden scarcity, which clearly is explained by rent-seeking behavior by some drivers who sought to cash in on the influx of passengers and commuters because the festive season was near. Government intervened by roping in about 40 buses or so from the state transport company, and this significantly improved the situation. Right after, the buses normally belong to STC, who use it for their day-to-day operations. But we noticed that once that happened, the drivers reverted to old behavior and they began to hold passengers hostage again. So starting from last week, the transport minister has made efforts to get the STC buses back on stream, and as I speak, they are back. The Metro Mass Transit also has some buses, some of which are in various stages of breakdown. He's ordered that they should be fixed quickly, so we expect that in a matter of a day or two, they should be back on the road. About 10 large capacity buses belonging to MMT. We believe that this will ease the situation a lot. And then, as I speak to you, there's a move led by the Vice President to engage the transport organizations, GPRT and what have you, in order to address what is clearly rent-seeking behavior by some of their members, which is exacerbating the situation and creating a lot of stress and anxiety and frustration for the motoring public. We believe that all these measures should coalesce to resolve the situation. But in the long term, efforts are going to be made to reinvest further in state-owned public transport through the MMT, STC, and others to ensure that we have a more permanent solution to this unfortunate difficulty.
And talking about long term, we're back to the solutions of old, aren't we? The Metro Mass Transit and everything. These are things we've been trying over a long period. and they've not really solved the problem. So how about a state-backed private solution?
Oh, I think that as I indicated Wednesday, public transport, by its nature and given the numbers involved, would have to be a private sector-led activity. And for decades, this has been the case. We've not really had this sort of problem. Except that suddenly this rent-seeking behavior by some people who want to make supernormal profits has led to scarcity. Admittedly, population increase and urbanization has also led to a situation where demand is outstripping supply. So therefore, we need to find new ways of addressing the problem. That there have been difficulties in implementation of policies like the Metro Mass Transit. There's no reason why they cannot be refined, fine-tuned, and better implemented. There's no other way out of the situation permanently, other than having a situation where there are sufficient number of means of public transport, either by road or by rail or any other measure that ensures that people can commute from wherever they live to wherever they want to go and work or engage in any activity and go back in decency without having to go through all this hassle and stress. So yes, past attempts may not have yielded the desired outcome, but it does not mean that we can't learn lessons from those past attempts and refine. Everywhere in the world, in the most advanced countries, public transport also involves buses, road transport. There are private taxis. There's a rail network. They have high-speed rail and what have you. So there's nothing wrong with starting with road transport. In other words, buses. There are plans. If you check our manifesto, there are plans to do light rail and what have you. Those will take a bit of time. But it doesn't mean that in between the time that we roll out that commitment, we should leave our people at the mercy of rent-seeking commercial vehicle operators. We need to do something to address the situation, even as we put in place the long-lasting and permanent solutions.
In the past, the NDC attempted a bus rapid transit. There were designated lanes at some point in time. It didn't work. Is that something the government intends going back to?
Well, I wouldn't say it didn't work. It was well intentioned. We brought in 250 buses. Everybody saw its rollout.
And it didn't work
significantly. Unfortunately, the MPP left it to collapse. Out of the 250 buses, now only 87 are functional because they were basically abandoned, were not properly looked after, and the whole scheme was mismanaged. That is why we are where we are. But that buses were brought in was a good step. And when they came in and started operations, we all saw the improvements in public transport, especially in terms of the cost and how affordable it was for members of the public. It is something that we will revive in order that we ease the problem further, even as we put in place all the other transport modes that ensure that people are able to commute from where they live to where they want to go engage in any activity and go back in a decent and hassle-free, stress-free.
Okay. Yeah. Now, these Metro Mass Transit buses that the Minister of Transport has asked to be fixed, when are they going to be on the road?
Oh, they should be on the road in a matter of days. But their repairs are being expedited. Mind you, Metro Mass Transit, is a corporate entity. They are a private organization, so they have routes. Some of it is intercity. But because of the crisis we've had to redirect some of the buses to do intracity transport. It may create a bit of a challenge for the operations of Metro Mass in terms of their intercity routes, but it is necessary because of the crisis we have, and they have agreed to cooperate in order that we resolve it. So the buses should be on the road in a matter of days. Actually.
All right, Felix. But before we wrap it all up, Sedina Atunu, former CEO of Maslog, according to the communication we're getting from Ghana's embassy in the U.S., has been arrested, currently in detention, waiting to be sent to Ghana. And this is because of an extradition request following her sentencing in absentia. Has the government been informed about this?
Oh, government has been aware of it. Indeed, the Attorney General disclosed the pendency of the extradition in July 2024 when he appeared at the accountability series late last year, on the day that he announced his intention to charge Untumi and others over the Exim Bank matter. So the Attorney General disclosed it. Once that extradition request was in place, the U.S. authorities had begun efforts to trace her, arrest her, and bring her to Ghana. So we have always known this. It is not anything that has been a secret. So once the U.S. authorities have indicated that they have her in custody, the necessary processes will be activated to get her to come to serve her sentence. Yeah. It also belies the claim that government was a pending extradition request. There was nothing more that the government of Ghana could do beyond waiting for the U.S. authorities to honor the extradition request, which they have done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Felix, thank you very, very much for joining us this morning. But there's a question that someone just sent to me about definition of gender and issues surrounding male, female, and smuggling of LGBTQ content into senior high school curriculum. What's the government's position on that?
Again, it's fairly straightforward. The government agency responsible for that, NACCA, have taken steps to withdraw the offending application. They have issued a revised one, which does not contain the offending words. So that matter, as far as you are concerned, stands resolved.
Thank you very much. Felix Kwakye Ofosu is Minister of State in charge of Government Communications, joining us here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. We've been